Good morning, Ohio. James Ernest of The Grueling Truth here with author Tom Callahan, author of the new book, Gods at Play, an eyewitness account of great moments in American sports. So thank you for joining us, Tom.
My pleasure.
So how does this book compare to your other works?
You know, this is the smallest, this is a book of little memories. It's, of course, it's a memoir of 50 years I spent wasting my life looking at games, but when I sat down, I didn't expect what would come out is a lot of little memories. You know, it's a typical one. Let me tell you a typical one. Mm-hmm. The 1972 World Series opened in Cincinnati. Jackie Robinson was on the field before Game 2. He was 53 but looked 73. Mm-hmm. White-haired, virtually blind from diabetes. 9 days later, he dropped dead.
Oh, damn.
And, of course, the black players on both teams, the Oakland A's and the Cincinnati Reds, surrounded him before the game. They just wanted to touch him. Everybody but the little second baseman for the Reds, Joe Morgan, who kept playing catch on the side. I got kind of fascinated by this. And so anyway, the message came over the PA for the non-uniform personnel to leave the field. Mm-hmm. And Morgan went up behind Robinson. And he didn't say, "This is Joe Morgan." He said simply, in a voice so low I had to lean in to hear him, "Thank you." And Robinson, without turning around, said, "You're welcome." I followed Jackie into the Reds dugout and up the ramp into the clubhouse where Jim Murray of the Los Angeles Times was standing. "Jackie, it's Jim Murray," he said. "Oh, Jim," Robinson said. "I wish I could see you again." And Murray said, "No, Jackie, I wish we could see you again." Well, I can't tell you the score of the game that day, but I'll never forget that exchange. And this is a book full of all the memories, all of the things I saw like that in my time around sports.
Oh, wow. Yeah, talk about, a huge moment in sports that, So it sounds like you were inspired to write your book so others could know about these unique moments in sports.
Yeah, well, I was in a hotel room with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Houston. It was kind of near the end of his career. And I told him that Lucius Allen, an old UCLA and Milwaukee teammate of his, had told me that he was intimidated by his own height. And Kareem said, ashamed would be a better word. He said, I was ashamed at how high my head was over my high school class. He said, you should see the cap and gown photo. But he said, I searched and searched for role models so I could feel proud of myself. And it took me a long time to find them. I said, who were they? And he said, I'm not sure I want to say. And I said, Wilt Chamberlain? And he said, are you crazy? And we laughed, but he stopped first. And in an incredibly soft voice, he said to me, the Empire State Building, the redwood trees. Well, you can't make up a line better than that one.
Exactly.
It's amazing and kind of accidental how I was standing places, all through my life. I stood with Roberto Clemente at his last locker. Of course, neither one of us knew it was his last locker. And I'm only there because the playoffs had just ended on a wild pitch in favor of the Reds. And I went into the visitors' locker room because I didn't want to get champagne all over myself. And all the other writers went with the winners. So here I had Clemente to myself. They asked me in kind of a academic way, how many opposite field home runs have you seen Bench hit? Johnny Bench led off the top of the ninth inning with a game-tying home run off Dave Justy, straight over Clemente's head in right field. And I said, I'm not sure, but I think that's the only one I ever saw. And he said, I thought so. And we just talked for a few minutes, and it's a total accident. You know, it's like everything that happened to me in my life as a sports writer. I just happened to be standing there for a lot of things. There's nothing in this book I heard of. It's all things I saw.
I was going to say that answers my next question. I was going to say a lot of times in books there's a lot of research involved, but it sounds like all your research was just first-hand experience.
Yeah, I guess it was. You know, I was standing at the finish line for all of Secretariat's big races. I was in Africa for, you know, Foreman Ali fight. You know, I was there. You know, and you know, as I say, when you sum up a life like the strange life I've lived, it's the smaller things. It isn't, you know, I was at the Miracle on Ice, but it's not the great touchdown run. You know, it's not the home run. You know, it's the little tiny things. I hung around with Red Smith a lot, which was a great break for me. He was a wonderful writer in New York. And near the end, I'd be his legs. You know, I'd go down to the finish lines or the clubhouses, you know, and he'd start his column in the press box. And half the time when I'd get back, he'd say, I'm rich, which meant leave me alone. You know, that he had already started and didn't need me. But anyway, I came up once, and I said, I've got to stop you, Red. Reggie Jackson had hit 3 consecutive home runs off 3 first deliveries from 3 different Dodger pitchers. And after the game, in the hurry to get a quote or two, I stopped off at first baseman Steve Garvey's locker in the Dodgers quarters, and he said to me, the third time Reggie rounded first, when I was sure nobody was looking, I applauded into my glove. And that was Red's punchline the next day, and mine.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, definitely being at some of the peak moments in sports. How is sports history compare with regular history? Is it an important part of American history?
I think so. You know, keeping the public informed on anything is worthwhile work, you know, and, you know, there were historical figures in my time. The most compelling figure was, of course, Muhammad Ali. You know, and Ali, the funny thing is he always greeted me the same way. How's Angie? I like her better than you. And he never met her. I handed her the phone once, though I was trying to get rid of him. See, he could be hard to get rid of, and the deadline was bearing down, so I handed her the phone, went into the next room, wrote a column, and an hour and a half later I came out, and they were still talking. And when I was in Zaire, of course, I picked Foreman. Students of my picks through the years won't be surprised. I had Foreman in one, and it was on the wall of the hacienda where the writers used to do their typing in Kinshasa. And Ali came in and looked at that, and he motioned to me, come on outside. And we went out. It was, you know, blacker than 12:30. And we had to hold on to each other to make our way to the Congo River. And when we got there, he said, I'm going to tell you something. I don't want you ever to forget it. Black men scare white men more than black men scare black men. And, of course, that's right. We were afraid for him. And I said, aren't you even a little afraid? And he said, a little fear is good. He said, I have to have my fear. I can't do without my fear. But only a very little. And I said, Angelo Dundee says that he's never seen you this uptight. And Ali said, my whole destiny is at stake here. And, of course, I knew I was wrong before the fight even started. Because it's 4 o'clock in the morning in Africa. You know, stadium full of 100,000 black faces. And Ali got stuck in his corner, and Dundee was checking the gloves in Foreman's corner, and the anthem started. He wasn't about to move while the Zaire anthem was playing. And so Ali's trying to motion him over. And finally he just says, Angelo, look at the arms on him. Look how big he is. He's huge. You know, and I thought to myself, And first round, Ellie barely fought. You know, he spent the first round convincing himself that Foreman couldn't hit him in the head. Nobody could. But when the bell rang, he ran to his corner, spit out his mouthpiece, and yelled over my shoulder to Herbert Muhammad, his manager, Elijah Muhammad's son, "Leave him to me." And I knew I was wrong.
How were you able to experience such great events in the history of sports?
I think it was just an accident. You know, it's kind of a unusual thing. You know, I was there when Ruffian broke down at Belmont Park. You know, and I was there with my great friend Bill Mack, who's dead now. He's a lovely guy, Sports Illustrated guy, and you know, I barely know which end of a horse eats. I used to follow Mack around so I'd know what's going on. And we ran out on the dirt, on the track, when Ruffian broke down. And then we went, you know, we kind of worked that story ourselves. And there's so many stories I can't even explain to you why I was there. You know, I talked to Ted Williams every year at spring training. And, you know, he didn't like the sports writers. But for some reason, he and I got along. And all the old great players at spring training, they come back in uniform, you know, like Sandy Koufax, you know, Al Kaline, but not the splinter. Williams would wear a roomy fishing shirt. But I think the secret for why we got along is I didn't try to interview him. You couldn't interview him. He interviewed you. He would say to me, "You're from Baltimore, right?" I say, "Yeah." He said, I said, "Chicago originally. I was born in Chicago, but I went to school in Baltimore." And he said, "You must have played lacrosse instead of baseball." I said, "After Little League baseball, everybody played lacrosse. Let me ask you something. Do you know Johnny Unitas?" I'd say, "A little." And he said, "Okay, Unitas is standing over center, and the stadium bursts into flames. What does he do?" And I say, "He runs the play." That's God-given. That's God-given. Good to see you again, Tommy. Next year we'll talk about Chicago. You know, I knew him, but I didn't really know him, you know? As I say, I feel like one of the luckiest, you know, it seems like a funny thing to look back on 50 years, you know, of sports writing, but, you know, O.J. Simpson asked me once, "Who do you say was better, me or Jim Brown?" I said, "Gale Sayers." You know? And you know, he laughed. That's how he won us, with a laugh. But yeah, I mean, it's a funny, kind of weird kind of existence. But you know, I was at Billie Jean's Houston match with Bobby Riggs. You know, I was just present for so much, and I'm grateful I was.
So, what's your favorite sport to watch?
I'm sorry?
What's your favorite sport to watch?
What's my favorite? Jeez. But my couple of favorites, believe it or not, don't involve athletes you've heard of. And I'll tell you a typical one of those. I moved over to the Washington Star to write a column, and almost the first call I got on my new desk was from Ted Kennedy welcoming me to town. I said, "Do you greet every newcomer senator?" And he said, "Just the ones I can use." And which I thought was pretty honest for a politician. And he said, "I want to take you to lunch." He said, "with my sister and another guy. I'm not trying to pry a column out of you." His sister was Eunice Kennedy Shriver, whose charity was Special Olympics. And the other guy was a handsome actor named Christopher Reeve, who I'd never heard of. He was starring in Superman, which was connected to Special Olympics. But anyway, that Saturday I went to a Special Olympics deal at the Capitol Center, and I don't know why, but I homed in on a little ruddy-faced boy with Down syndrome, stuck to his mother's hip, and his athletic deal was throwing a softball, something really rudimentary, but he threw it well enough to finish third nerd in his class and climbed up on the medal stand, and they looped a ribbon around his neck with a little badge attached to it, and he didn't react with any emotion. He was still in his trance, and when he got off the stand, he and his mother exited, as it happened, up my aisle. I was sitting 20 rows up, on an aisle, and he got to right beside me, and he turned to me, and he held out the little bronze medal, plastic medal, with his thumb, and said, "Look what I won." And it was all I could do to say, "Good going." And that's the only time I ever cried covering anything, but not the only time I wanted to.
So, I mean, I can imagine with all the events you experienced, there were some stories that were left on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, I guess so. There are probably things, that you don't, you don't say, because it's kind of there's a trust, my favorite athletes through the years never said, "This is off the record, this is on the record." They trusted you to know, and like I was around Bob Cousy a lot because he coached the team I covered, and Cousy would say things to me like, "Do you know the Berrigans?" And I'd say, "Jesuit priests, right? War protesters, didn't they pour blood on, draft records somewhere? Are they in jail?" And he said, "Phil is." He said, "Dan might be going to jail for smuggling letters in to his brother." He said, "I met him at the Cross, Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. And he said, I don't want you to get caught flat-footed if some of the letters are mine." Well, of course, I didn't write that.
Yeah.
And didn't. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that you'd be surprised how many things that you just kind of know not to say. And it's not like you're protecting them. Tiger Woods once said in my presence, they were asking, where was Phil Mickelson? Mickelson was taking one of his paternity breaks. His wife had tough pregnancies. He didn't want to play at the end of the year anyway. And so Butch Harmon was on a practice team. He said to Tiger, "Where's Mickelson been?" And Tiger said, "Breastfeeding." and he looked over at me and he said, "Oh no." I said, "Sorry, pal." And I did use that. But another time, the British Open was going on at Hoylake, which was Tiger's second greatest tour de force. And on the third day, Saturday, he was paired with Ernie Els. They were two of them were leading. Tiger, I think, was one up on Ernie. And so they're getting ready to go off and play. And Tiger's hitting a few of those one-handed putts, getting ready. And he looks over, and I was standing with Hank Haney, his coach. For some reason, he didn't see me or didn't register. And Tiger said, "If I break this guy's heart one more time," meaning Els, "maybe he'll go away and stay away." And then he saw me, and he goes, "Oh, no." And I said, "I'm letting you off the hook on this one, Tiger." I said, "If you were coming in and said it, I'd use it. But I don't want you to think about it on the golf course. You're going out, so, it's a free one."
Nice. So, I mean, it sounds like this book is one amazing book that pretty much fans of all sports should check out.
Well, it's free. It'll be in the library. Don't buy it. I'm an old crock now, and I'm past the point of writing for money. I write for love. So, yeah, I'd love anybody who'd like to read it to go ahead, but don't spend any money on it.
So where on social media, where on the web, where can they find out more about you and your other writings?
I'm sorry?
Where on the web, where on social media?
Oh, everywhere. It's all the usual suspects. Amazon, etc.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom, for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Hey, I enjoyed it. Thanks for talking with me.
My pleasure.